Let's just check in with our sponsors for the podcast real fast before jumping into the show today. So this podcast, it's sponsored in part by Allsbrook Accounting, Rochester's entrepreneurial financial service provider. This local team provides experienced accounting, bookkeeping, tax prep, and advising at extremely affordable rates to help entrepreneurs and businesses of all sizes launch smart and grow fast. Contact Allsbrook Accounting today at 931-841-4937 or at allsbrookaccounting.com. That's ALSBRROK accounting.com for a free consultation to get your business off the ground and on track for growth. This podcast is also brought to you by the Investor and Innovator Forum. Please join us in Rochester, Minnesota for the 3rd annual Investor and Innovator Forum. The forum was launched by Destination Medical Center and Mayo Clinic as a venue to foster conversation and collaboration between emerging and experienced entrepreneurs and the investors who support their growth. These conversations will continue in 2019, bringing together investors and innovators from around the region to talk about the climate for innovation and investment, with a specific focus on data innovation in a variety of industries. So you can learn more about this forum and also Allsbrook Accounting by clicking the links in our show notes. I'm Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 136 of the podcast today. So today we're bringing you our latest From the Edge, which is a new podcast series that we're launching within our podcast to discuss trends in entrepreneurship within Rochester or across a larger entrepreneurial scale. So we had some great guests on the podcast today. First off, we had Beth Fynbo. Beth is a local entrepreneur and creator of Busy Baby Mat, which is the first placemat to keep babies' toys in place. We are also joined by Kathleen Harrington, the president of the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce. And as always, we're joined by Jamie Sundsbak, the community manager at Collider Coworking. So we talked about a lot of trends in entrepreneurship that we're seeing within Rochester and across a larger scale. A lot of these centered around inclusion and collaboration. We talked a lot about the value of putting yourself out there as an entrepreneur. We discussed who is an entrepreneur and how everyone can give back to our entrepreneurial ecosystem. We also talked about the importance of collaboration among entrepreneurs and what we're seeing in terms of collaboration and support in Rochester, as well as in other healthy entrepreneurial ecosystems. So you're in for a real treat today. Be sure to tune in to the full episode because there are a lot of words of wisdom and really great conversation going on. All right, so now we'll jump right in with Beth Fynbo, Kathleen Harrington, and Jamie Sundsbak for our latest in the From the Edge podcast series. So thanks for being here today for our From the Edge podcast. We have 2 great new guests, plus Jamie.
Thanks. I really feel honored to be the plus,
contribute,
the plus person.
So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay, I can start. I'm Beth Fynbo, and I am the creator of the Busy Baby Mat. It is the first ever placemat to keep toys in place, stops infants and toddlers from constantly throwing their things on the ground.
Well, I'm Kathleen Harrington, and I'm with the Chamber of Commerce, formerly with Mayo Clinic in a previous life, now serving at the Chamber, and marveling every day at what people like Beth and Jamie and Amanda are doing to really strengthen the ecosystem of entrepreneurism in our community. I'm not often humbled, but I am definitely humbled in this job. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. So the goal with these podcasts was to talk kind of about trends in entrepreneurship, whether that's in Rochester or kind of on a larger level, just to kind of bring those things to the forefront. So I'm curious to see what everyone wants to talk about today.
I can start because I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was thinking about how my journey began when I first had an idea to start a business and to to develop this product. I had no idea. I've never done anything like it before. And the first thing I did was went to the Toy Association Toy Fair in New York City to be in the industry, to talk to people there and see, how did you do it? And when I first got there, and I went into, there's a separate section that's just for new inventors, first-time product developers. And I would ask people their story, and they were very tight-lipped. And they would just give me really vague advice of, well, you just have to work hard. You just have to keep trying. It's really, really hard. And I thought, oh gosh, maybe this isn't something I want to go into. And then I went into the other area with more experienced businesses, and I got a lot of great advice and lessons learned. Then when I came back home and started getting involved in the entrepreneurial community, I found that people are becoming more and more, over the last 2 years as I've been developing this, willing to help each other, but in a way where we're collaborating within our own competitive sphere. So I'm part of a group that we found each other on Instagram of other parents who have invented products for babies. So we're kind of competitors. We all have different products. There's room for everyone, but we're all coming together to help each other out, share lessons learned. You know, we post something like, has anybody had experience with EDI? Somebody who's done it will chime in and help out. And I'm seeing that in Rochester. I saw a post just a couple weeks ago, a group of social media influencer folks got together to help each other out and brainstorm ideas. And I think, I don't know if it's a new trend or not, but it's something I'm just seeing more and more personally, is people really opening up and helping each other out, even people who are within the same kind of realm.
The one trend I thought about, and now it's especially appropriate with Beth here, is the dramatic increase of minority and women entrepreneurs. And, you know, I can remember back in the 1990s when Nesbitt wrote a book called Megatrends, and he predicted then the influx of women entrepreneurs. And back then, women were hitting the glass ceiling in the corporate world and saying, okay, I'm out of here. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. That has just grown and grown. And it's so exciting. And I think it's really hitting our community. And women like Beth are, I think you're establishing a way of working together that is collaborative. I mean, Nesbitt also wrote about, way back then when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, that management was going to change, and it was going to change from a top-down to a collaborative workplace. And I think that's the spirit that's really permeating entrepreneurism, and I think it's coming out throughout this whole community. And much credit to Jamie and to Amanda for leading the way.
We're trying. I don't know that we're making progress.
Hey, no, we're making progress. Actually, that's what I was going to say. Actually, for both your statements, when I've gone, across the country and visited other entrepreneurial ecosystems, you see various stages, and I don't think there's any formal, stage 1, stage 2 of an ecosystem. But what I noticed is in the more healthy ecosystems, it was more about collaboration and support, because people would, maybe someone's had, has sales now of their product, and they remember a time when they were struggling to find or prototype their product, and they're willing to give their time and help. And so definitely, I first saw this in Salt Lake City in the 2000s, where people, it was amazing. Like, you'd come with a crazy idea for a product and people would just plug in and help you and start moving forward. Even if there was a little bit of overlap in your products, people just wanted to see things succeed. And I think that that's the sign that we're moving forward as an ecosystem. We're seeing more and more of that. When I first got involved here in 2006, I couldn't get anybody to tell me anything about anything they were working on, because they were afraid I was going to steal it, and apparently over a weekend create a successful business.
Right.
Which
they only knew.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, first of all, it shows they have no grasp of reality. And so it's taken time, but I think we're getting there. I think we're moving forward, and I'm really excited to hear more about. I never thought about an Instagram group getting together to work on stuff. That's actually a fantastic idea.
I actually saw that happen with the food bloggers. It might have been like a year ago at this point in Rochester. They got together to do that, and that you could consider that to be highly competitive. But I completely agree with your point, Jamie, and what everyone was really saying. And, I have taught a lot of business development classes, and a lot of the times people, even when they go out to do customer interviews, literally will say nothing about their business, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to get input, but even at the end, but I always think if someone can move faster than you, you are not the right person to be doing it. Move on to something else, because if someone can pick it up, have more of a passion, have more of the connections and resources to do it faster than you, it's not the right thing.
I think it also, to build on Kathleen's point, I am seeing a much more inclusive ecosystem, and that's been phenomenal. I mean, I was just in a meeting where we were discussing people we wanted to nominate for a board, and the top 5 people were all women, like instantly. Like it wasn't even an afterthought. It was just like, these are the most qualified people to be here and to bring value to this board. And it really, everybody stopped and looked around and said, this is amazing that we would just instantly say, these are the best people for the job. So I think we're seeing more. I think we have a lot of work to do still, but I think we're growing a lot faster than probably we think we are, because we're living in a kind of our ecosystem bubble. But I think we're making some great strides, especially over the last 2 years. It's been phenomenal.
I think too, there's a change in the support organizations collaborating. I think it's fair to say, I recall a day when these organizations were more competitive with each other. They're seeking the same source of funding for their organizations, but more and more realizing that collaborating together means spending less on administrative costs and getting greater product and probably having greater impact. Not to do a commercial here, but I can't avoid it. The Chamber really believes that we have a role with entrepreneurs in the very early stages, not to ask for membership, but to put our hands out and say, can we help in any way? We don't want to sell a membership to a fledgling business. We want to see that business succeed and eventually get to the point where they want to and see value in joining an affinity organization formally. So I think that's a change. We're trying to reinvent ourselves. And I think Jamie and Amanda and what you're doing here to say this is the kind of ecosystem we want is really having influence too in the more traditional, historic, long-standing organizations. So I appreciate your leadership. We want to emulate that spirit as well, and have pledged to try to do so.
Yeah, so kind of along those lines, I was actually talking with someone I considered to be a mentor yesterday for a completely different reason, thinking about ways of how to scale my business. And he basically told me, like, when you get someone else on board with your business, it helps it to be more collaborative and helps get more buy-in from individuals as well as kind of the community to see something like that succeed. And I think that's really a huge key for whether it's a single business with a solo entrepreneur or a large organization. It's, having that support, that collaboration with the community and having that be something they want to see, continue is really a hallmark of the more successful companies. I never thought about my business that way, with getting more people, involved, either in a mentorship role or, if it could be a financial exchange, really helps them want it to succeed and helps just diversifying the concepts that come to the table to help with that. But yeah, I think on a broad range, getting buy-in from individuals and community is essential for any organization.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, too, is putting yourself out there. That was another thing that was tough for me as an entrepreneur starting out is, one, having, and especially I think females, we do this to ourselves, is having the courage to do it, because you think, who am I to come out and try and start this business? What do I know? And so first getting out into the community like this and going to 1 Million Cups and meeting other people in this environment and feeling that support just helps you to thrive as well.
Yeah, I think one thing we're realizing is more of an issue than we thought is getting people to think that they are an entrepreneur. And that's going to be a challenge. I'm sure, Kathleen, you have this challenge as well. I think the basic definition of an entrepreneur is you exchange a product or service and someone wants it and pays for it. That's it. Doesn't matter if you're, how old you are. Doesn't matter how much experience you have, or if you're, in this business full time.
Yeah, I don't even know that you have to get paid for it. It's, 'cause I didn't get paid. I honestly still haven't gotten paid. I'm actually, selling product and making money, but I'm still not getting paid. And it's more you accomplishing a desire, a dream, or a goal that you want to share with the world, and is the world happy to have it? And that right there, will lead to something. And I think you're an entrepreneur the entire way that you chase after, from the beginning, you chase after that dream.
I think there's another element, and maybe it's unspoken, but I think it's putting yourself at risk, putting your life at risk, not literally, but your time, your connections to friends and family, your personal borrowed capital. That's huge. And oftentimes, especially with women, in the past, I'm older than everyone sitting at this table. In the past, women felt that they had to be asked to do something. They had to be asked to run for office. They had to be told, you've got a good idea. Why don't you start a business? I think we're seeing more and more women standing up and saying, I can do this, I will do this, and I'm willing to put myself at risk. As my experience with the Chamber, most of my career has been either in government or large organizations. In the Chamber, I am honestly humbled every day by meeting the men and women who are starting businesses, but who have managed businesses for 50 plus years. And every single day, they are putting everything on the line. Small businesses, which make up a third of our economic landscape in this county, puts itself at risk every single day. And sometimes don't get the respect they deserve for that act. And I think more and more as I talk to young people, the kind of the litmus test is, what's your courage? What's your appetite for failure? And how strong is your backbone and your ego?
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because now, we talked about in the beginning, Jamie mentioned people are willing to help you out now. And I finally found myself in a position where I'm able to help young entrepreneurs out. I would not have gotten anywhere where I'm at now without all the people that generously gave me their time and their knowledge and shared that information with me. And now I can kind of pay that back a little bit, and I'm happy to do it. And we need to continue that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the what I call the virtuous cycle of entrepreneurship. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but it is, because I said it to us. That's really my thing to put out in the world. But I really think that's true. And it used to be, I would think in my mind, it's the cycle of the company. So thinking about a company getting started, you're getting a major liquidity event, so through to acquisition, and that feeds back. But recently, I've been reshuffling that to really think about the individual entrepreneur. It's the cycle that entrepreneur, you're learning a lot. You're learning a lot every single day. And it may take a while. You've got to get comfortable to where you are building your company, but it's that cycle actually feeds back really fast. And you explained exactly what I've been thinking about for the past month is refocusing on the individual entrepreneur and what they can give back to the community. And even if it's just a tiny bit of their time, to talk to other entrepreneurs, to do podcasts, something that really gives back to the ecosystem. I think that's what we need to be focusing on. Of course, we always want companies to be successful, but we want to encourage more people to give a little bit of their time, because young entrepreneurs, and when I say young, I mean people with new ideas for companies. That's how I'm defining that. They need all the help they can get, and the experience that we have in our community. I mean, we could build some massive companies with the right support, early stage, and it's not always money. I hear so much about people saying, "Well, we don't have enough money in this community." Well, there's not enough money in any community outside of probably Silicon Valley and Boston, where you seem to throw a rock and hit $1 million investment somehow. That's not reality anywhere else. So I think that that will come in time, but I think it's really entrepreneurs giving back to each other and support organizations that can step up and take those risks at an early stage without seeing that immediate sort of quick benefit. But the benefit over the long term, I think, will definitely pay back. I think that's the dream. That's what, years ago, a group of us got around for coffee and started talking about that's the way we should pattern this. And I think it's starting to happen. So it's amazing. And it's less about us and it's more about the people who are the doers and actually making the impact in the community.
I think another thing that you are creating with this ecosystem culture is reducing the loneliness. I can remember speaking to a few members of my board recently, and I said, this is one of the toughest jobs I've done because I feel this emotional weight of all of these risk takers. And I said, it's exhausting and I'm lonely. And this man, who's a very successful man who runs a 50-person company in this community, turned to me and said, welcome to the life of being an entrepreneur. It is so lonely. And risk-taking can be lonely. But what you're doing to create a culture of lifting each other up is what we want to do with the Chamber, and we want to do with other organizations in this town to lift up and honor, but support and give, not just friendship, but ideas to one another. Because it is lonely to take risk. It is lonely to be out there trying to decide where can you sell the next product and do I have enough hours in the day to be out there. Beth was saying she's her chief marketing officer.
Yep.
Though I'm sure that is a lonely exercise sometimes.
Yeah, it is, and it's an exhausting exercise to be that one sole responsible person for absolutely every aspect of your business and to have that emotional weight and stress, like you said, that risk, and then also to go, I'll be at Thursdays on First this summer, and that's a solid day of standing out in the heat and repeating the same kind of pitch over and over and over again to everyone who stops by and hoping that you give each potential customer the best, demonstration of the product. And if you can just imagine repeating the same 5 sentences over and over from 11 until 8:30, you can imagine how exhausting that is. But it's also so gratifying. But what you were saying about how I keep having this podcast come back into my head, Rachel Hollis' Rise podcast, that I think a lot of people, especially female entrepreneurs, might be familiar with. And she's a very great encourager of entrepreneurship, especially with women. And one thing she repeats over and over in her podcast is how it took her 15 years to get to where she's at, and she had to do it all by herself. She had to go to the library and read books, and she had to go on Google and learn things. And that's how my journey started as well, until I got into this ecosystem and just asked people. And I was so afraid to ask people or to let anyone know that I was out here doing this thing that I have no idea how to do. But then the second you get here and you talk to somebody who's going through the same journey and they've been where you're at, you get this confidence and this extra push. And why not learn everyone else's lessons learned and save time and money and pain when you do that? So not only does it get rid of the loneliness, but it also gets you to your end game faster with fewer mistakes. Yeah,
that idea of an early stage acceleration, you talk about business accelerators. I think there's sort of a community accelerator that can come into play with a more mature ecosystem. And a great example of that was yesterday. Someone here at Collider who's doing a startup was saying, I don't want to have to pay the $250 a month necessary to pay this online accounting software to be able to do what it needs to be done. And I said, yeah, I pay my accountant like $125, and he's fantastic, and he provides that one-to-one support. And until recently was local, and just a phenomenal person. And I think hopefully they'll do that deal, but that saved him so much time, money, and stress because he was always looking for a tech solution to everything, when what he needed was someone who could provide value right here in the community. And it's saving him money, and he's going to get a lot more out of that. So just being able to make those connections so fast where you don't have to tap your Rolodex and other people's Rolodex and go and interview people and all of that, but you can build that trust. That trust capital is what I always call it. we can say, hey, Jamie did recommend this person. Jamie seems to be marginally reliable as a source. So we definitely, I'm just going to go with it and see how it works. And you're just saving so much time. You're accelerating a business forward because you're not having to reinvent the wheel on every single thing.
Yeah, and the best part is that referral network, because I would definitely take the referral of the people that I know in this kind of ecosystem and have very little fear of something not working out or being right. You still spend your time vetting things out a little bit, but you don't have to be completely shooting in the dark. And you can always go back to Jamie and say, Jamie, what the heck?
It's happened. I'm not going to lie.
Your referral was crap.
It's definitely happened. And sometimes people don't click, and that's fine. But yeah, that's the thing. People ask us in Collider, like, oh, do you have a lawyer who's the lawyer you have to recommend? I'm like, first of all, I only take the people I really like to be sponsors. But second of all, they're really good at what they do. And I wouldn't recommend them if they weren't. And usually when people ask for a recommendation, I list 3 people. One usually associated with Collider because I like what they do. The other 2 are probably not. But they're also, when I think about that entrepreneur and their needs, they're probably a better fit. And so we've had those discussions quite a few times, and so far they've worked out. Not too many people have been angry at me, so that's a good sign, I guess.
Yeah. I think going back to what Kathleen said at the beginning about creating inclusive ecosystem. So we're hoping to distill this down in a much more detailed format. But last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago at this point, I can't remember, I went to a conference in Pittsburgh, where I grew up, it was put on by Forward Cities, which is an organization that will partner with different cities. It seems like their ideal city is about 300,000 to 500,000 individuals, but basically they'll function as the go-between between support organizations or government and entrepreneurs to create kind of an inclusive environment. So there were a lot of really good lessons learned. Again, a lot of them were for kind of larger cities, but one thing that we talked about in that and we've been talking about with the foundation and other efforts is, meeting people where they're at. Like you were saying, Beth, it might, because of other commitments, it might take someone 10 years and it might take someone, 5 to do, and not everyone can come to us here. We'll have to go to people where they are and meet them with, part of it too is helping people get educated about the resources available. And if you don't know that, you are kind of on the outside. So, meeting people where they're at, making sure they feel included, making sure they're involved in the decision-making process of what's offered in the community, and just making sure they're connected. Because like we were saying, like financial capital, yeah, that's great, but you don't get financial capital without human capital. And I think that inspiration capital as well, like telling these stories, the lessons you've learned, the lessons other people have learned, building their business are so applicable to everybody. It doesn't even matter if you're in the same industry, if you're making a consumer product or running a coffee shop, the basic processes are the same. So the more we can tell those, get those diverse inputs to the table, it's just going to be a really productive time for everybody, I think.
One of the things I think that's changing a little bit, maybe a trend, again, it's observational, not data-driven, is the notion that an entrepreneur, or that they're not being driven, or many are not being driven by acquisition. When do I get acquired? When can I sell this and cash in, cash out? But making the decision to be an entrepreneur, to put themselves at risk so they can do something they care about and stick with and grow or sustain. And I think that's really a different mentality too. And I don't know whether that's because of the diversity of people coming in. And I think it's generational. It's crossing generational lines from what I've read. But I think that is really, really important. And something, as the ecosystem is being built and woven together, is an important part of that fabric. And having come from, I did work in a startup at one point, and the goal was to get strong enough to make our product strong enough to get acquired. That was the goal. We were all shooting for that. And for me, there was something missing. The spirit was missing. The fun of development was there, but the spirit of, okay, the why. So I just see more people, especially women I've met, who are doing this to make a life choice, to develop something of quality, and to be on their own. And that's a little different.
I think we have I'm seeing it more and more in the Midwest, as highlighted by like Rise of the Rest through Revolution and things like that. We're not subscribing to the typical what I call coastal model of exactly what you said. It's like you got to grow, you got to get acquired, and it's a 5 to 10 year process. I think people really do want to build something that will last. And that's a very Midwestern approach. At the same time, I understand when you're taking venture capital money and stuff like that, sometimes those priorities can shift depending on how invested people are in your company, because they're probably looking at a quick return. And so, I think we've talked on the podcast before, does that venture model need to change a little bit? Is there, whether it's a more broad horizon, should we... It's what's happening in the pharmaceutical industry. There's not a lot of innovation in these large pharmaceutical companies. They acquire these upstart pharma companies, and then they kind of fold them in. And really, is that's what happens? I don't think that's something we want to happen, or I don't want to see happen. Is a lot of these small companies just get folded into these giant things that adds value to them. I would like to see more companies that are out there that are thinking about a 50 or 100 year timeline, that are generational. I think we need to get back to some of that stuff, because if we don't, it's literally going to be like those. A lot of '80s movies were focused on this like dystopian future where 2 corporations ruled everything. I actually am starting to worry that we're getting there, and we need to see other things rise and become more permanent, I think.
I think as people age, this will change, because I do see this as a generational thing. The younger generations that are starting businesses are doing it for a lot of reasons, but a lot to just be in control of their own fate, not be stuck in that 9 to 5, societal thing that we've had for the last 50 years. But then, like you mentioned, with venture capitalists, they're feeling that pressure from what is more than likely an older generation who has that old mentality of getting out with big bucks and making the money, where the younger generation is just making a new kind of life. And as that older generation ages out and goes into retirement, maybe we'll see more of a shift.
I think the important thing too is, I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's under 5% actually even take venture capital.
Right.
So when you think of all the business creation, new business creation, that's a tiny piece. And of course, everybody it seems like they want to chase after that. But that's a really small piece of the pie, and I think that I really love this idea of building a business to last. I think that was a book, but I think it's something we need to do. We need to get back to that culture of ownership of businesses and the success and the tremendous economic impact that can happen when. Even 5 people, even a single person, what can the impact that have on a community is amazing. And I think it's a real hope for our smaller communities too around us. The chance to really create something of value in these communities that put, a large amount of people into the workforce and they stay in that community. I think that's another fantastic way to help, well, for lack of a better term, save smaller communities.
One of the interesting things that we did a study in the Chamber of the economic impact of small business in Olmsted County. And we did it with macroeconomists in cooperation with the Minnesota Extension Service. 1 in 3 jobs in Olmsted County come from small business. 1 in 3. $1.5 billion is put into this economy in our county from small business. We're 3 sectors in this economy: healthcare, Mayo, and all the other healthcare operations, ag, and small business. We don't have much mid-size industry here. We are so dependent upon and must honor small business as a driver of the economy. And I think we're trying to do that with policy people is say, you must be mindful of the impact of what you're doing on small business because it is so critical to our economy. I think as we live in the great shadow of Mayo Clinic and the intellectual property is spun off and everything, we forget sometimes of the power of small business. And I'm going to spend my last breath speaking about that and loudly and trying to really advocate for the needs of and the value of that to our community, because it would be a very, very different place here without it. And diversifying it is important, but honoring it is really, really important. I'll get off my soapbox, but
Yeah, no, yours is a more relevant example than what I was going to say. When I was at this conference, Kauffman Foundation, who is Kansas City-based nonprofit that supports entrepreneurs, and I could be getting the exact details wrong, but basically when all these cities were vying for Amazon to come to their community, and they were going to bring 220 jobs. The Kansas City entrepreneurial ecosystem created 220 jobs last year. So it's like, people are vying for these large organizations, but what is it? Every 3 people out of 1,000 want to start a business, and imagine if those 3 people were able to employ 5 to 10 people, how quickly you could get there.
And think of the amazing amount of money that people were willing to throw at Amazon. I mean, it was insane. Some of the incentives and things, and that was easy. That was apparently a no-brainer for these cities to do. Take 10% of that and invest it back into your small business, your entrepreneurs. That would move mountains in almost every community.
Yeah. And we were talking about, what is that one little thing you can ask people to do for the entrepreneurs or the small businesses here that would be so easy that everyone would do it? I don't know what that is, but, I think it's an interesting concept of just a change in your way of thinking, or, giving 30 minutes of your time to sit down with somebody and talk, just something so easy to help bring that way of thinking to the forefront in the community.
Another thing I could point back to with that part of the conversation is shop local. I'm currently in the position where I'm only selling things, my Busy Baby mats, from my website, and then in person at things like Thursdays on First or Thursdays downtown now. Everybody tells me you should get on Amazon. You should get on Amazon. Well, Amazon takes almost half of my profit, and I'm still shipping it from my house. So, yes, you could get on Amazon, everybody. I love Amazon myself. But if I could get the same thing in person, that's going to help that small business so much more than that extra little convenience you get of getting it delivered to your door from Amazon.
That's one of the reasons why we did the economic impact study, was to try to show people the value of shopping local, whether it's retail, whether it's for professional services, personal services. You cannot underestimate the value to the fabric of a community, the strength of the fabric of a community from shopping local. Yes. And we would say shop local first, and first before you go online, first before you get in your car to go shop in the cities. But we're trying to extend that out, as I said, beyond retail to personal and professional services. It's kind of going back to the future. I mean, we talked about that. Yeah. That was popular 20 years ago, but it's more relevant now. And I think if people think about it in terms of the impact on the community, not just that entrepreneur, but the impact on the community, maybe we can try to change that culture, change some shopping from online. That is convenient. And our retailers have to make sure their customer experience, and everyone has to make sure their customer experience is enticing enough to be competitive. But let's build the culture around understanding that shopping local is more than just that business. It's all of us and the strength of our community.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of, supporting small business growth, a lot of the things churning through the state right now with the new Minnesota Deed Commissioner, Steve Grove, and is it called the MIC? No, I can't even remember the
No, it changed its name.
They changed the name?
Yeah, that was one of the pieces, the modifications to the legislation. Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, and I don't know that many people know about that, in Senate. Well, they're hoping to get it through the state, right? I think it's...
No, I think it passed.
It passed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you see how far behind I am.
And the always good angel tax credit.
Right. I knew the angel tax credit, but their whole package passed then? Okay. So then a year of health insurance for entrepreneurs, right? Which I thought was that's a huge benefit, because how many people does that stop from starting a business? I mean, we've heard stories of people paying like $1,500 a month for health insurance.
Right. And that's one of my challenges right now is I'm still working my full-time job primarily because I need the insurance. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even know that existed. And I didn't know Deed existed until someone pointed me in that direction, and I ended up getting a no-interest loan from Deed. So just knowing that those resources are out there, that I wouldn't know that, and I wouldn't have learned about this new policy had I not been here today. So,
yeah, I'm not really sure when it's going into effect. Then is that?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, let me know so I can put in my 2 week notice.
We should do our due diligence and actually figure this stuff out.
Yes. But, all right. Well, we're getting near the end, so I will. If anyone has any final thoughts, to give those, and also let people know where they can find out more about your organizations.
Okay, so I guess my final comment to any entrepreneur listening, or anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur but doesn't think they can, is that you can. And I know almost 2 years ago today, I came up with my idea, and for 6 months or longer, didn't do anything with it because who was I? I didn't know what to do. And I will tell you, this entire journey, I have not known what the hell I was doing. But you figure it out. You figure it out. You just have to start doing it. So that's my last piece of advice, whatever. You can find me at busybabymat.com or at busybabymat on Facebook, or at busy_baby_mat on Instagram. And sometimes at Thursdays on First.
And your product is absolutely amazing. I've got to stock up on it for Christmas gifts and holiday gifts for
baby
everybody
shower
I
gifts
know.
as well.
Baby
it's an awesome
shower.
baby shower
Oh my gosh,
gift.
perfect. So the final offering I would make is that it is really exciting in our community in particular to see so many women entering into entrepreneurs and putting themselves at risk. And I think we need to really do more to reach into our minority communities, our new immigrant communities, to help support them, meet them where they are, not ask them to come where we are. They may not be comfortable coming to Collider or joining the chamber, but how do we support them? Because we need that entrepreneurism, a broad-based approach to entrepreneurism. And that is what the chamber is trying to do. Like all organizations, we have our vision and we will constantly work towards it. And if you're interested in learning or participating, all are welcome to attend events, to learn about us, and we can be found on the web at the rochesterareachamber.com. And I would welcome the chance to talk to any of your listeners, Amanda, and thank you and Jamie for all you're doing for this community to strengthen it every day.
Do I get a final word?
Sure.
Okay.
We're being inclusive.
So thank you. I feel special. So everybody most people know that you can reach me at Collider Coworking. Just Google Collider Coworking. We're everywhere. But at the same time, really the message I want to get out to people is I'm just here to help you. A lot of times people come here, I would say between 3 and 4 people a week, saying I've got a great idea, I want to get better connected. And I think there's a misunderstanding that I will only help you if you have a membership to Collider, and that is absolutely not true. I want to see people succeed, and it's been something that's been a driving factor for me for the last 7 years. And someday that may pay back, someday it may not, but I just want to see more entrepreneurs succeed in our community. So, check us out at Collider Coworking. We're excited to announce soon, well, we've already pretty much announced it, we've formed a nonprofit called the Collider Foundation, which will do a lot of that stuff. And it'll kind of separate that confusion between what a co-working space is and what is an organization it really exists in our community to help our entrepreneurs. So there'll be more on that later, and hopefully very soon.
Well, thanks all of you for being here today. I think this was a great conversation, very enlightening, and it's always fun to do these kind of things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Beth, Kathleen, and Jamie for being on the podcast today. And you can find information on all of their groups in our show notes as well. And if you have a great suggestion of an entrepreneur or a Rochester entrepreneurial service provider who would be a great guest for our From the Edge podcast series, send us an email at rochesterrising@gmail.com and let us know why they would be a great person to have in on this conversation. So in other news, our July communication session focused on mental health and entrepreneurs has been scheduled. So it'll be held Thursday, July 25th from 5:30 to 6:30 at Collider Coworking. So the whole goal with these communication sessions were basically to take care of the health of the whole entrepreneur. So a lot of the times we focus on the business, but this is meant to focus on the entrepreneur as an individual, making sure all their needs are met. So our July communication session is focused on mental health and wellness. This session is meant to be a safe space to communicate mental wellness challenges facing entrepreneurs with the goal to help create a community of support for Rochester entrepreneurs. So the cost to attend this event is only $5. It's well worth your time, well worth the $5 to attend. You can find more information about this event in our show notes, as well as on our Facebook page. So check it out. And as always, if you know a great entrepreneur whose story we should tell, let us know. You can find us on the web at rochesterrising.org. We're on Facebook and on Twitter under the handle @RochesterRising. We're on YouTube. And we're on Instagram. You can find us on Instagram with the handle @RochesterRising_MN. All right, that's a wrap for our podcast today. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music or wherever you listen into your podcast content so that you never miss a story of entrepreneurship and innovation coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll see you here next week with a brand new episode.